3 books. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for the invitation to be here. And I'll go through actually some material here on this quest for a perfect battery, which of course is raising the bar quite a bit, I think. But I'll go through this from the perspective of safety, low cost, and reliable. So with that, let me move on here. I'll try to go through about 4 topical areas here, just a short introduction on some history and development, especially looking at electrochemical storage. Then go into some of the costs, applications, especially for smart grid. And then this, what I'd like to really focus on is combinations. I don't think as we go through this for energy storage that there's one technology that's going to sort of serve all. So along that vein, I will go through these types of topics here. And I'm going to focus a little bit on the safety because that's, with this electrochemical storage, that's sometimes maybe not overlooked, but it certainly has to be addressed, and especially when you look at the sort of storage levels one would need for grid application, even if the thing's sitting off in the field somewhere. But a lot of them are going to end up like the trend today is, for example, for the substations. They're right in your neighborhood. And that may be where a lot of this storage will find itself if it's at the distribution level or if it's at the community storage level. So to get started with, as an introduction, and I don't know if you can really see the slide here, material is here on the left, but this is a graphic that shows the cost per kilowatt hour, and these are your lithium chemistries over here. As you get toward the center and where the batteries are the most used, this is where you find the sodium sulfurs. And then as you go on out here toward the end, and actually some of the lowest cost ones, these are your sodium nickel chloride. It's also called a zebra battery. It's the one that's was invented in South Africa. Swiss picked it up and it's been bought again, but that's been used quite a bit in hybrid bus. I don't know that it's used a lot in buses today because they're moving more toward lead acid and lithium. But for example, small wind energy conversion stations, they've been advocating use of sodium nickel chloride quite a bit. But anyway, you can see the sort of differences there in the advanced chemistry batteries on the left to the redox flow batteries in the center and high temperature batteries like sodium sulfur to the ones on the far right. So there's quite a spread. Now, one thing I did in looking at the energy storage system, specifically looked at a lithium ion battery here from the very high power to high energy. And these are shown here in these different curves in terms of specific energy versus specific power. So kilowatts versus kilowatt hours. High energy, high power, and then very high power on the left. And it turns out, and I think it's real clear from putting this sort of a picture together, is that really that's what's happening is one is trading away this energy for power in order to get these higher power batteries. So if you look at it in terms of the kind of vehicles, I do a lot of work in transportation systems. If you look at these diagonal lines here for power versus energy for the energy storage, it's a good metric for quantifying performance. You can see that for high energy, for example, what you would want in a battery electric car like the Leaf, or a Ford Fusion or a BYD vehicle that comes out, you actually want to be way out here. The further out here you can get, the better off. That's getting way past that 100-mile sort of limit that's out there now. And so I call that a true energy battery. There is no such thing because people are just not able to make this yet, and there's a lot of work to develop the chemistry to do that. But for example, these powered energy of 1, that's what your battery is today for a battery electric car. It's all energy, but you have so much energy, you typically have the power you need for meeting targets. On the opposite end of the scale here, where the battery looks, giving away most of its energy in exchange for power, those are applications, for example, that one in particular, that cell is advertised for wind turbine use, for pitch adjusters, high burst power, short time. And if you keep pushing to the left, and I just simply drew a line over these battery characteristics, ultracapacitors, supercapacitors, those things are all right up here in that range. So what you're doing is basically making a power battery look like a capacitor, except it still has quite a bit more energy. And now you see the introduction of these hybrid caps, a lithium capacitor, a capacitor battery, a carbon battery like Axion Power makes. In the middle, this is the plug-in hybrid vehicle. You hear a lot about PHEVs. They need both the power for accelerating and maneuvering performance, and they need the energy then to make their 40-mile of advertised range. But if you look at it, you can see it's a compromise. It doesn't have the energy you want for the range, and it doesn't have the power you'd really want in a vehicle. So if you stick with one technology, that's the sort of compromise one has to make. And what I argue for is putting the best of the best together. Put a true energy battery here and real high power components together. And how do you manage that? And as you see as I go through this, that's where power electronics will come in. So if I look at back through, and I'll just go through these real quickly here for some of the history. Some of these insertion chemistry batteries, like the lithium ions, go back actually into the 1980s. For example, in 80, with the cathode materials, John B. Goodenough did that work, and then followed by Akita at Sony in 81 for the anode. And then those things were put together basically by Sony in 1990-91, and they commercialized your laptop lithium-ion battery. And progress over the past 2 decades has really focused on safer electrolytes, separators that shut down if they get too hot, and basically cut off the reactions, and then a lot of focus on additives. That's sort of the secret sauce of the lithium-ion battery. And then, of course, there's cell overcurrent protection. And as I go through this, I'll put citations for things I reference on each of the slides, and these can be available if anybody wants them. So if you look at these technologies then, and I think I made one mistake on here, it should be specific power versus energy density because it's watt hours per liter. So if you look at where conventional batteries are, your leads, your nickels, where lithium is today and where it's going, as you move away from the origin on this chart, you're becoming smaller and lighter. And as you go out to the far upper right, that's where some of the focused work is going on today especially with primary lithium and rechargeable lithium. And then there's this talk of lithium air and sort of these real high energy batteries. So there's the theoretical metrics on lithium air, for example, 5,000 watt hour per kilogram. If you compare that to gasoline, it's nearly halfway there. Except even if you could commercialize that, and people are trying, you'll be lucky to get 20 to 40% of that theoretical, which is where a lot of the lithiums and other chemistries are today. And your common everyday alkaline battery, primary battery, is right here on par with a good lithium ion, but you can only use it once. And then if you look at the buildup, what's going on now with the funding, my only point putting this chart in here, and it's what you already know, there will be a tremendous overcapacity in the 2015 timeframe for supporting plug-in or battery electric cars, as all of these plants come online for building large format batteries. That's the 40 amp hour, 100, 200 amp hour cells for these vehicles. So that's I don't know that that's going to result in a lower cost battery, but it's certainly going to result in a lot of capacity to build a lot of battery packs. And the other point here on cost is the materials. This one I've looked at before with the nickel metal hydride battery used in the Prius, for example. It's got 2.5 kilograms of cobalt in it. And that's a strategic metal that's relatively expensive. Not as expensive, I think, in the past 2 years, but it certainly jumped in 2006, where the price of that metal went up a lot. And today, the lithium, the material for lithium batteries, the lithium carbonates, are really relatively inexpensive. I'll show you in a minute that lithium is one of the lowest cost components of the lithium battery. And the other point here is that it doesn't take a lot of lithium to manufacture lithium-ion batteries in terms of materials. And I think everyone that's been through an airport is aware of this DOT Travel Safe initiative, where you cannot pack a lithium, a second lithium battery for your laptop can't go into checked bags, because you're going to have right at 8 grams equivalent in those packs. And I've heard the announcements at the airports reminding people, make sure you don't put those in your check, just take them in your carry-on bags. And that's again for safety. So here's a little look at the content in some of the batteries. So when you hear, and I talk quite a bit about transportation because I do a lot of work in electrified transportation. These battery electric and plug-in vehicles have very large packs in terms of this should say kilowatt hours. A Focus EV, a Nissan Leaf, for example, 24 kilowatt hours. And BYD actually dialed back their 60 kilowatt hour pack to a 48 kilowatt hour pack. Some of the cell sizes from 60 to 200 amp hour, fairly high voltages, and again, not a lot of lithium content by the metrics we just cited. Here's a breakdown then for basically the cost, and I'm still focusing here on what's been going on with the cost picture in the battery. Here's the couple of years ago actual price points, and there's a goal that was set, and this is actually from a marketing study that was performed. And you can see here that the cathode materials, foils, the anode active materials, and copper foils are a small fraction of the overall price of these energy cells. Then when you get into the separator, the separator itself, that polymer separator, is actually on par with the cost of the manufacturing cost of both electrodes that go in. So the active materials in there are just a small fraction of the cost of putting these cells together. And then a big chunk of the cost here is simply the manufacturing and the formation and packaging, and then of course your overheads on top of that. And I'm sure a lot of folks in here are familiar with the breakdown on some of these costs. But even if you push this to what the goals are, you can see that the material costs here still close to what they are. You're basically going to hit the floor of the materials. The rest